there, and thank you for opening this video. I wanted to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about what the podcast is about. I'm Ginny Bolling. I own Pivotal Real Estate Investments as well as Acquisition Solutions and this podcast called Pivotal REI, which stands for Real Estate Investments. So they're hopefully all easy to remember now. Used to be called Pivot to Prosperity, but in any case, the podcast is now Pivotal REI. And who I am, I have been in real estate over 40 years. I graduated from the University of Central Florida, and the Department of Transportation down in Fort Lauderdale hired me. So I moved down there, was down there roughly 20 years. But it turned out after they did all the training for me of engineering and appraisal and all this great stuff, they never raised the pay enough so that I could stay. So I left and became an appraiser. I found that was a very important job and thing to understand. So I did that for 6 or 7 years. And that was during the savings and loan crisis. I was appraising whole subdivisions sometimes that had gone belly up because the banks were closed sometimes. It wasn't necessarily that the deal wasn't good, but so many banks were closed down during the savings and loan crisis that it turned off the funding to a lot of developments that were perfectly fine too. So some of them might have had roads in, some of them might have been almost done with all the houses built and many of them occupied, but some models still outstanding. But so we would appraise as is and then as though complete, not whatnot. But I enjoyed very much appraising flex warehouses and all kinds of things. And it was a great background for me to have. And then I returned to doing eminent domain, first with Florida Power and Light, worked with them doing transmission line acquisitions. And then I went back to the Department of Transportation, but as a consultant now. I was with Kaiser Engineers. I've also been over the years with HDR and AECom as a consultant or an employee. You bounce back and forth on these kinds of things. But so I have spent my whole career really in commercial real estate, and we bought all kinds of properties along major roadways. You're hitting parking lots and hitting buildings and sometimes demolishing buildings. And so I started in acquisitions as a negotiator and worked my way up and became a project manager overseeing the team that would be doing relocation and property management and the lawsuits. And a lot of times I double into the property management side of it because usually negotiations were slowing down when we were starting to have to clear the right of ways. Done a lot of demolition, bidding out work, and contract administration, which is all transferable skills to running properties. What happened after that was my husband and I moved up back to Orlando, or to Orlando. I was coming back. He was just getting here for the first time to raise the kids. And then I got downsized, 10 years later or whatever. And it was the same time as a friend of mine in 2017. I finally found out what it was like to get laid off. And she always wanted to do flipping. So it was a dear friend of mine. I said, I can do that. Don't ask me to paint. But so we started flipping. But one of the things that we did was we were told by many people, join the local RIA, which is the Real Estate Investor Association, RIA usually, a lot of times. And we just happened to be in the best one of all here in Orlando. That's one of the best in the country. And part of that is because it's a nonprofit. So it's about ethics and education. Very different from what I expected. When I worked for the Department of Transportation, we'd come across people that had bought land speculating, that they wanted to get hit by the DOT. They wanted to have an acquisition occur, right? Or be right on an interchange or whatever. But these investors are very different. So they're not speculators. It's two different things. I want to be clear on that. But so I really started learning a lot going to their meetings, and there's a commercial and multifamily group that was going on, and Phil Georges, who I've had on my podcast, was leading that, and he was saying, Ginny, it's just couple more doors, right? Do multifamily, don't do single family. And it started finally sinking in. And I realized that the laws had changed. I had bought property from syndications when I was doing DOT stuff and whatnot, but I had always thought and understood that you had to be ultra wealthy to own commercial real estate. But the Jobs Acts of 2012 and 17 really changed that. My website talks about all this too, but I can't say it enough because people don't always read everything. And so that changed it so that Joe Public can now get into some of these pretty much. Now, you have to meet some qualifications. You have to truly understand the deal and you have to truly understand what it's about and have enough money that you're not investing your only money in a syndication. But the big thing is you can invest in some really sizable properties that are going to give you some, it depends on what the plan is. But what I like is the value add strategies where you go buy a property that's run down in some form or fashion. You put money in it, fix it up, and that raises the value because you're also raising the rents. You're increasing the appeal of the property. That's called value add, like I say, and people can pool their money. That's all that a syndication is. You're pooling resources. So some people have the skills, some people have the money. Usually you want your people with the skills that are going to run it to also be invested, but there's a lot of minutia to get into. Besides that, you can own some really amazing properties and not have to do any work. That's the beauty of it. You can get the cash flow. We like to do the value add that will give some cash throw off. So cash flow. And then you also get the depreciation and other potentially other benefits too. Some of these have a lot of other types of tax deductions. And then you're building wealth because when it's sold or refinanced after the end of the holding period, there's usually a large bump in the value. So sometimes we'll refinance in the middle to give part or all of that money back too. But it's normally like a 5-year holding period. And $50,000 is pretty much the typical to get into these deals. And it's so that's like less than you would save up to go buy a rental property where you have to do all the work. You're signing on the mortgage and everything. And these, you don't have to do all that. And you're roughly, your money is the goal every 5 years. And so many of my peers here are so competent to be able to get into these and understand them and whatnot, but they're so busy working. And like all of us, I should have known this a long time ago. But we're so busy working, and then when we get home from work, we've got soccer and kids to do different things. It might be piano or ballet or whatever, but I just am trying my best through this podcast to get it out there to people that they can get into these deals too, and that it's very rewarding. And it gives people a chance also to hear people's stories about how they got into it. I interview other people just like me that are doing this, or I also will potentially interview property management folks or our flooring people. And everybody's got something to teach you about commercial real estate. I invite you, if you have a certain topic or person you'd like to see me have on the show, please let me know. What I do with these shows is I ask people to come on with a takeaway. Now, the old ones, I didn't used to do this, but to have a takeaway so that the listener knows what you feel is most important for them to take away from listening to the podcast. So we'll try to repeat that twice. Then I ask everybody towards the end if there's a pivotal person or event that brought them to where they are today or is pushing them towards some goal. And that's because I have this Local Legends and Pivotal People series. And that's so that I and you can benefit by knowing who those people are. And so if somebody does name somebody that's been especially important to them, whether it's local legend, pivotal person, or both, then that's awesome. They can call and say, hey, I nominated you. Or we can call and say, hey, so and so nominated you. If you come on the show, we'll promote you as that. And you get a lapel pin that says that's what you are. And it's a lot of fun. Feel free to tell me if there's somebody I should get on the show too. You can nominate without having to come on the show yourself. Anyway, hopefully that sounds fun. You like the idea. Please share or comment on any of the shows and look at the website. There's a couple particular good things on there besides just a ton of data. I overdo data, I know. That's what I'm known for, is my due diligence. But in the resources tab, there's a due diligence form that just reading over that will teach you a lot about questions to ask and whatnot. And then there's a terminology course, it might be just a refresher for you, but you can look over that and get the terminology down. But more importantly, it's a brave new world that we can get into some of this stuff. And the name of the game, if you ask me, is to have multiple income streams. That way, if something stops, then you still have other income that you can rely on. And so you never know when there's going to be an emergency. And there's so many of my peers also that are in the real estate investor community that are flipping houses and doing other things. And they want to be in control, so they don't want to buy into a syndication. And I get that. But there's still retirement money they can't use that they could diversify with. But if they get hurt, then they don't have those multiple income streams either. I just really am known for saying everybody should buy into syndications. One of the things that I did when I first started hearing about it, because it sounded too good to be true, was I went to Harvard Business and the IRS site and Cato Institute and researched all this stuff. And truly, they predict that someday most major real estate, or a lot of major real estate, is going to be owned by syndications, which are groups of people that have just pooled together. Of course, lots of insurance companies own a lot of real estate and whatnot, but it's evolving. More and more people are learning what syndications are and that they can do it too. So hopefully that's exciting to you. Thank you so much for listening. And please let me know if you want to invest because, oh, I should probably talk about that. We do present opportunities. If you aren't already vetted by me, I can't tell you about a lot of them because there's two main types in short. There's the 506Cs, which you might see advertised, but it's only accredited investors that can get into those. An accredited investor is somebody that makes 200,000 a year or more for at least 2 years, likely a third, going on track to be a third. 300,000 if you're married, or your net worth is $1 million or more, not including your principal residence. And there's a couple other qualifiers, like you have a business that's making $5 million or more, I think it is, and a couple other things, or you're licensed to sell securities. But if you're not accredited, then there's this other whole thing as a result of the Jobs Acts of 2012 and 17 that is called a sophisticated investor. And so many of my real estate friends are sophisticated enough to understand a syndication and that it's illiquid, but that we're buying a distressed property. We put together the business plan. You have to review the plan and sign off that you want in before you can get into these deals anyway. You get to meet everybody, you can go to the property, and then once you fund it though, there's nothing else to do. You are a limited partner. It's very exciting. You can really do some good things. And I do encourage people to think about potentially buying property that's near where they like to go vacation, because that way you can go see your property and vacation at the same time and write off some of those bills. Anyway, hopefully that all sounds clear enough to you that listening to the podcast will be fun and that you'll reach out, because I do need to have a conversation with you. I can't tell you about the 506Bs. You have to be friends and family to even know about those. So unless we've had at least 3 conversations that get in depth about finances and what you're looking for and what you're used to, and some really important things to know if that deal meets your needs. You're the decider, but it sure is important for me to make sure that I have done my homework to make sure that it also does seem to fit your needs. So anyway, that's a 506B again, B, friends and family, or the C that you might see advertised.